For a glimpse into our natural, cultural, and historical heritage, North Carolina Scenic Byways presents the North Durham Country Byway. Located in the central Piedmont, which is French for foot of the mountain, the North Durham Country Byway winds in and out of backcountry roads. As you take this picturesque tour, you cross over many waterways through peaceful farmlands. This byway, like many, was selected for the beauty of its countryside and for its unique history and culture, which is representative of rural Piedmont life. Notice that on the map, just below the designated byway, you see a grouping of markers. The North Durham Country Byway is positioned close to many important historic sites. Let's begin our journey by starting here at the Bennett Place. Near Hillsborough Road, you find the Bennett House, a spot marking a most significant event. By chance, the Bennett farmhouse was the place where two important generals came together in 1865 to discuss a peaceful solution to a tragic civil war between the North and the South. Midway between their lines, the Union General Sherman and the Confederate General Johnston met at this simple farmhouse 3 separate times to agree on terms for the largest troop surrender of the Civil War. Durham was neutral, so during the truce, ground soldiers of both armies sat together around campfires, told stories, smoked tobacco, and generally had a good time. When the thousands of soldiers scattered to their homes far from here, they sent back to Durham Station for more bright-leaf tobacco. This helped to spread its reputation far and wide. Today, the reconstructed buildings at the Bennett Place give visitors a feeling for the lifestyle of an ordinary Southern yeoman farmer. Step inside this simple farmhouse and log kitchen, and you can get a better sense of how a family had to work together and see the different types of daily chores. Outside, you can imagine what life was like. Farm children rarely attended school because their labor was so valuable on the family farm. Crops, such as corn, oats, barley, and wheat, were sold at market to supplement family income. These self-sufficient farmers sold horse feed, tobacco plugs, and raised hogs, like many other North Carolinians of the time. Another interesting site, close to the Bennett House, has a tie to one of North Carolina's most important cash crops. Near Durham Station, Duke Homestead was once a small farm where a man named Washington Duke first grew and processed tobacco. When he returned home from the Civil War, he remembered the soldiers' love of bright-leaf tobacco. With his children, he began a factory in a small log structure on the homestead. This building is a reconstruction of where he first processed tobacco. Duke prospered. After only a few years, he built this much larger 2-story factory. Here, Washington and his workers processed tobacco the old-fashioned way. You can see how they hit tobacco with sassafras sticks to make it easier to remove the stems, and how they ground the leaves by hand. The workers stripped the leaves from the center stem and actually threw them back into the field for fertilizer. The remainder of the leaves was sifted through a sieve. At the restored Duke Homestead, you can learn much about the early techniques of tobacco farming, which became a vital part of North Carolina's economy. You might not be surprised to find Duke University close by. Trinity College, later to become Duke University, benefited by contributions from this family. It is interesting to note that a talented African-American architect named Julian Abel was the chief designer of this detailed example of Gothic work. Now let's stop by another historic site, the Hayti Heritage Center, funded by the St. Joseph's Historical Foundation. The Hayti Center is a place where the community can come together to experience a wealth of cultural and educational activities related to the African American experience. This complex includes St. Joseph's AME Church. Conserving this lovely historic church is just part of the mission. Educational programs teach guests about the accomplishments of African Americans in the Durham community and nationwide. The Hayti Center hosts many different events that help us gain understanding about African American culture through many different forms of art. there's much to experience. The range of themes captured so expressively in the visual arts. The dynamic exploration of African American music and the energy and rhythms of African dance. Check the Hayti Center's busy calendar so you can participate in upcoming special events. Before you leave the Hayti Heritage Center, take another look at the exterior of the church. This important historic site was originally founded in 1869 under the leadership of Reverend Edion D. Markham. Erected in 1890, the present-day building was constructed by bricks fired by the local African-American brickmaker named Richard Fitzgerald. This industrious gentleman also fired the bricks for the Duke tobacco warehouses, which are nearby. Fitzgerald was a founder of an important black business venture, Durham's Mechanics and Farmers Bank. Scan the Durham skyline, and you find other evidence of African American prosperity and major contributions individuals have made to this community. Founded by John Merrick and others who attended St. Joseph's Church, the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company is the largest black business in America. Because of prosperous businesses like these, Parrish Street in Durham was once known as Black Wall Street. Another important institution, North Carolina Central University, was founded by other prominent black business leaders, Dr. Aaron Moore and Dr. James E. Shepard. As you explore the Durham area, there is much to learn about the many ways that African Americans have enriched this community. Now it's time to amble on and find our way to the official start of the North Durham Country Byway. It is easiest to get there by following Interstate Highway 85. Go north on State Road 1632, and soon you will come to one of the byway's most important sites, named Staggville. Turn in at the sign that designates historic Staggville, which is one of the largest plantation holdings in the South. At the center of what was once almost 30,000 acres, this site recalls the history of the two families, the Camerons and the Benahans, and their land holdings. Here the visitor gains insight about Southern plantation life. As you drive into this plantation, you first see the late 18th century Benahan house. Compared to other grand plantation homes in the South, this dwelling seems simple. But notice the details. The paneling and paint were luxuries only the wealthy could afford. This building and the amount of land were most impressive for the times. Today, a mile down the road, visitors can see a much simpler dwelling, the Horton House, which was originally built by a yeoman farmer prior to the Revolutionary War. This more modest house is typical for most North Carolina white farmers who raised what they needed to support themselves during the period before the Civil War. Many yeoman farmers sold their farms once the soil was depleted of valuable nutrients and headed further west or south. Also surviving on this property are the houses of the slaves who labored to produce the plantation's cash crops. More than 900 African Americans called Staggville home. These houses, like many plantation buildings, were constructed by the slaves. The greatest testament to the skill of Staggville's slave artisans is the Great Barn, which was the largest agricultural structure in the state at the time of construction. Constructed from huge timbers, felled and milled from plantation forests, the barn features hand-hewn timbers and seldom-seen joinery. The barn served primarily to house mules, which were used to draw farm machinery and wagons. Few, if any, of the slaves owned at Staggville were directly from the African continent. Although the majority were American-born, this site provides us with clues that show the survival of African traditions. Artifacts help us to reconstruct African American traditions and daily activities of the slave community. One divining stick was found inside one of the slave houses. These sticks were used to call forth good spirits. Also found was a cowrie shell, used for ornamentation. Because of the archaeological evidence and documentation of this site, historic Staggville and Horton Grove remain a strong source for African American history and North Carolina's plantation life. There's even more to discover on this byway as you meander through the countryside. Continue on your way down Stagville Road and you pass through the small village of Bahama. First known as Flat River, Bahama developed when the railroad came through. Like many small towns, the heart of Bahama has always been its two churches. You first come across Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist Church. And further north, at the crossroads, you find the Mount Bethel United Methodist Church. The original church was organized in the late 1700s and was the hub around which the village grew. Because of its charm, the Historic Preservation Society of Durham selected Bahama for its 2003 tour of homes. It was called Durham's Country Crossroads. Take the Bahama Road out of town to reach the tranquil waters of Lake Mickey. Because this is one of two city water reservoirs, recreational activities are restricted, but you can picnic and hike on the trails, or with a permit, you can boat and fish at this pleasant site. If you follow the primary route for the North Durham Country Byway, you travel north, then west, down Red Mountain Road, on past Quail Roost. As you weave in and out of the rolling terrain, notice how different rivers crisscross the byway route. The Flat River meanders down from Person County in a southeasterly direction, and it joins the Little River. Both join the Eno River, which becomes the Neuse. Because the entire area of North Durham County is well drained by these rivers, the landscape appeared promising for the early English, Scots, Irish settlers, and their African slaves that settled here. Soils of sandy loam or firm red clay were originally productive for growing corn, grain, tobacco, and cotton. Amble along, and you pass frequent views of this rich Piedmont farmland. On the last portion of this scenic highway, you continue along what was once the Great Indian Trading Path. As early as 1670, this was used by European explorers, hunters, and settlers as a famous Piedmont fur and deerskin trading route. But this path had been used much earlier by Native American groups. By 1763, only remnants of the Sioux people remained in the area. From the past to the present, from start to finish, exploring the North Durham Country Byway gives you a feeling for the unusual beauty typical for the Piedmont area of our state.